Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's Her Heart Like Esther's, and it's another continuation from episode 23, and where I was discussing I had arrived upstate New York, finally found some, a safe haven God led me to and provided me with, and I've, regained a little bit of hope again, and as time went on, I started to notice a turn for the good in my life. I received an opportunity to interview for a position at their transit system in Schenectady, upstate New York, which actually was a system that ran through the areas of Troy, Schenectady, Albany, and Rensselaer. But I want to begin just saying a theme, with people around me. It would, like I mentioned before, everyone around me at some point. Sometimes it would happen in an instant, and sometimes it just subtly just turn or shift in a different way, meaning people just would reject me. And so, and this thing was like, when your friends seem to turn back on you or turn their backs on you or go back on you in any way. And there's a scripture about this in Psalm 55 where it says, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but for me, at verse 16 through 18, I'm going to read. It says, "As for me, I call to God, and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon, I cry out in distress, and He hears my voice. He rescues me unharmed from the battle waged against me, even though many oppose me." And, during my time of distress, when I thought I had no one, that this is one of the scriptures that I would turn to in Psalms 55. But that's a verse from, or those verses are from Psalms 55 in NIV, but I would read Psalms 55 in KJV. And so I just wanted to say, like, out of the blue, my friend, now her demeanor towards me shifted in a way I couldn't quite understand. It was like that aha moment when I started to see that same spirit that would embody everyone around me at some point, in time. Um, the behavior started to shift, and so yeah, her sudden change prompted me to redirect my focus toward like my pursuits and like heavier. And I just sensed that she might, at the time think that I would start imposing on her or, something like that. And in truth, it was the exact opposite. Whenever she reached out, I was often gone, on the move, embracing life, even in the biting chill of snow upstate at that time, like diligently engrossed in my own projects and activities, which included looking for work, learning getting familiar with the area, and having embraced independence since I was about 15. I had developed a keen ability to navigate through life's challenges and like take care of myself. So I really didn't, I always appreciate information, especially during that time of hardship. I was going through a lot, losing everything. And this was energy. It was energetically sent to me by, people that Satan was using at the time, which were, witches and warlocks. So while I genuinely appreciated the insight she provided, such as those potential leads And those bits of advice were merely supplementary to my own plans I had already had. Um, I had already outlined a strategy to secure the shelter before my arrival, and I executed it precisely as I intended to. Yet I began to notice her frequent calls, each laced with an eagerness to hear every detail of my day, along with wanting to know my life. It just came out of nowhere. And she sought my assistance with her own work, juggling a full time job while transitioning into her new career and attending school full time. And I think she was going for a bachelor's in a different direction. And it had left her feeling overwhelmed and stretched thin. So I initially agreed to help her catch up with her studies, knowing I, had valuable insight and experience from, you know, during my own MBA coursework. So it became glaringly clear that her desires extended beyond simple guidance, though. She seemed to want me to do the assignments for her rather than merely assisting her. It was as if she was seeking a shortcut rather than genuine support. And just reflecting on my own challenges, I realized I had walked this road before and was reluctant to revisit the stress of tackling assignments. I've been down this road. I know how hard it is. And, it requires a lot of focus, especially in the form of like tedious Excel sheets, business math problems, and convoluted PowerPoints presentations. The thought just loomed large, feeling overwhelming. You know, be, aside from the other stuff that I had going on, just trying to get my life back on track. So, but I did accept the challenge and completed a few papers for her, just trying to be kind and helpful because they were manageable and familiar to me. So I breezed through it, not to toot my own horn or pop my collar, just trying to be of some assistance because she assisted me with like picking me up, and just giving me guidance because that was her area. And however, after submitting one or two assignments, her relentless requests for help only intensified. And we exchanged countless messages, and overwhelmed by the situation, I decided it was best to step back and like silence my phone for a while because it's like you do one thing and people want more, And it just came apparent that like she wanted me to do the work. She didn't want help with it. And I just began to notice a troubling pattern. And and then I just started to realize she had been compromised by that negative influence of that spirit that followed me around, that embodied everybody, which is actually known as a monitoring spirit. And it's an intent to enslave me. Like I didn't know back then it's like a spirit of Pharaoh, because I noticed like it just struck me that I just observed everyone who would come in contact with me seemed to be eager to extract something from me, yet offered little in return. Or it was always a motivation, to just breadcrumb a little bit and to get more out of me. It just became evident that she harbored a continuous, monitoring spirit, always checking in. It just came out of the blue. She started calling all the time, trying to find out, where I was and what I was doing and for who I was with. It seemed like it angered her that I was being self sufficient. And um, in her generosity, at least I thought, she offered to let me use her address for my mail, with the promise of bringing it to me on her days off, And so I had a sense of trust and I accepted the offer and I had my mail forwarded, to her home because it had been piling up at the post office. I was just keeping in touch and had an account with USPS. And I didn't have, while in Miami, I didn't have anywhere for it to be forwarded to. So every 30 days, I would place a hold on my mail through that USPS app as I needed to retrieve, any mail from Atlanta. So in hindsight, I just recognized that this decision had been a big mistake, because she, started to it just shifted in a really bad direction. God had continued to send me persistent warnings about certain things. And because I was a baby Christian, my grasp of the spiritual realm was still in its infancy. If I just found myself delaying every divine prompt, largely because I was leaning on my own understanding and, acting impulsively without seeking his guidance. I was seeking his guidance, at least I thought, but in the wrong manner or the wrong context, or on the wrong subject. And instead of embracing my faith, I let worry cloud my judgment, like in that sense of desperation. And that's nothing but the devil. And to complicate matters further, I, often shared and sometimes overshared my aspirations with the wrong individuals, because you always think, and at that time, I always think when I make a move to a certain place or a different area, all that stuff is going to be over. These people are different. But, I didn't even understand how these witches were able to, find me or know, but it was that monitoring spirit, that energy, and that would always know who I was around, you know, and people be in sin. They don't have a relationship with God. So it's just easy for them to be compromised. And so, yeah, one day she began calling me like out of the blue, just again, calling me more frequently, and just to relay messages about my mail, which I found odd because she was supposed to call me to let me know when, her time or her day off, what time she would be to drop it off. This was her offer. I didn't ask. And but now she's calling me to ask if she could open my mail and just read it out loud to me. And I was just taken aback. And it was in that moment of discomfort about that situation that I became aware that, yeah, that was definitely a monitoring spirit, like just lurking nearby. She had embodied it and been compromised. So she, I can tell, was rubbed the wrong way when I declined her offer about opening my mail and just suggested, alternatives like bringing the mail to me, or like I even opted to like just I'll take a Uber to her house and pick it up myself, since the buses, they didn't go in her area of Rensselaer. They didn't go like just Troy, Schenectady, and Albany. And this situation weighed heavily on my heart at the time because I just felt a deep sense of sadness because it just kept happening to me. And it's like I couldn't trust anybody. And it was just a profound disappointment in what was unfolding around me. Again, even in the shelter, I just noticed like the attacks from out of nowhere. I didn't know any of these women from a can of paint, but this is what that energy did, and at that time, I lacked the clarity to fully understand the nature of these uh, disquieting experiences, if you will. But as my relationship with Christ deepened, I delved into further study. Like the truth started to emerge, like the hidden things, and I started to recognize certain things and understand things. And I just had to go through all of that stuff, but I uncovered the presence of the witchcraft and the spirits tethered to my bloodline, like revealing that I was unwittingly engaged in a battle to break a generational curse. And it was just, yeah, it was very heartbreaking and devastating to say the least. And I didn't even know that I was facing it actually. At the, all this time, I didn't know. And this is when God started revealing to me through people, through his prophets, through teachings, through watching certain YouTube. It just, how when you read the Bible and certain passages or verses just hit hard, where it like you become very emotional. And this is how he started to reveal these things to me. It just became clear that this was all part of God's intricate plan. The pain, the loss, and disappointment were not in vain, but it held a greater purpose in my life. After all, tampering with someone's mail, going referring to my girlfriend, is it was not only a breach of trust, but that's a federal offense, and it all of these things, as I like sat there to like digress these things, it just reminded me of the serious nature of spiritual battles that often just go unseen, and how I didn't recognize certain things and the people around me definitely not, because it's not happening to them, they're just being compromised. I just made another visit, like to the post office in person, and this time it was to place a hold on my mail, transferring it from her place to Schenectady, and where I was temporarily residing in a women's shelter. And fortunately, the post office was conveniently located just a block away from me. So what I did, I was afraid to like get a PO box because the money, nothing was set in stone. So I didn't want to, make a contract on this and I couldn't keep it up. But I would just keep placing that hole and pick up my stuff every, to the 30-day, and then I'll go back and do the same thing. But it was just a block away, so it was easy. I didn't want to have my things coming to the shelter at all. So it was just convenient for me. And in hindsight, I wish I had taken this step much earlier in my journey and never had it going to someone's house. I just didn't see that unfolding. Yeah, I would have just initiated the mail hold process anew all over again rather than having it, because I didn't, this was a friend for many, many years, and like for something so tedious. But like I said, I started to notice the change in the behavior, and I knew that was a spirit operating. So many people in similar situations often remain unaware of the risk or threat surrounding them, like the jealousy, the envy, or even the like a hint of pride. And these insidious emotions, they fester, they can fester within people without their realization, and because the enemy can use, you know, any type of feeling as weapons against whoever he want to work against, in any kind of relationship, whether it be with a spouse, a child, parent, friend, bosses, co-workers, or even just mere acquaintances, So, and often those who are affected and used as monitoring spirits don't comprehend why they hold a grudge against you, or why they even have these type of thoughts and they surface, or your presence. It could be just your presence looming just in mere existence. They find themselves enveloped in inexplicable anger and aggression towards you. It's as if a hidden force operates within them, like whispering in their minds negative thoughts, or whispering negativity in their minds, turning their hearts against you, and nurturing a cauldron of unwarranted hostility and resentment. So when I've noticed when you stop talking to these agents, then use like animals and insects, flies, crickets, ladybugs, cats, dogs, cockroaches, bees, birds to monitor you. It's a real thing, people. It's a real peak thing. So, my moral to this episode is that sometimes we have to watch what we chat about. Less is more, and not trust, especially if you're going through something like experiencing like witchcraft attacks and stuff, because they're targeting you for a reason. So they want to monitor your every move, especially when it has something to do with the destiny swap. They have to know everything about you. If you ever notice someone around you, like you may have a phrase that you use, like for example, I'm sure in all my videos you realize I always say, It's like the guys, they say you heard. I guess it's a New York thing because I'm not the only one who do that. But it's just a habit, or something that you may say, and then you start, these people, someone around you may like try to embody your character or your personality, your style, the way you dress, the way you wear your hair. They mimic the language or the lingo, and this is what this young lady was doing. She did that back, before, when we were neighbors, because it's all about how my neighbor was an ex-witch and tried to attack me with witchcraft. Well, she didn't try, she did, and destiny swap. And she just started to mimic everything about me. And I just thought it was wow and odd. And yeah, I had no idea about any of this stuff. So, as I'm getting attacked and just beat down spiritually, I it was the only way I was going to learn these things. And it was a gentleman by the name of Kevin L.A. Ewan. Oh, I learned a lot about this spiritual realm, the darkness of it, the powers of darkness. I'm telling you, this man knows a lot about this stuff. Like, so in depth. There's so much information on YouTube. With, I can name a few, but this gentleman, he knows a lot. So if you are experiencing anything that has to do with curses, spells, witchcraft, black magic, santeria, voodoo, you can actually go to his channel and go back to, like, go on his channel and look at all his he has down to a T. And I learned a lot. And that's when because sometimes God will lead you to certain people for certain things, and he speaks to you and reveal things to you, but it's like confirmation. And then it be, more insight that you know you can get from these teachings. So I thank you again for coming back to the channel and listening to my story. I pray that all is well with you and your families. May God continue to bless you and be well.